things will change enough so that they don't necessarily have to go all the way toward the kind of things that many humans on your planet do at this point, because many humans by that time will understand that there are differences going on in different worlds, and therefore they will make allowances for the hybrids to be themselves as well. Nevertheless, these are fun games for them to play so that they can, when they do sometimes temporarily come to Earth and attempt to blend in by hiding in secret among you and seeing if you recognize any of them, then they are testing themselves and improving their ability to blend in that way. Not, again, for any kind of nefarious purpose, but just so that you can more smoothly get along with one another.
Are they telepathic with each other?
For the most part, yes.
So they would function more like you do when you encounter another member of your species. There's an acknowledgement of the existence of the other person, and then does there actually have a conversation happen where they're telepathically talking to each other?
Well, yes, but again, remember that with telepathy, the conversations are over in split seconds. It's not like a drawn-out conversation when you use words. This is why the Anunnaki were the first to actually locally transform your genetic material from Homo erectus to Homo sapien. But the idea to remember is that through the device called panspermia, genetic material was brought to Earth long, long ago on asteroids and comets. So in that sense, even the naturally evolved hominids on Earth are already containing some genetic material of other extraterrestrial species to begin with, as is all life on Earth, because it all comes from elsewhere and landed on Earth in these cometary and asteroidal impacts millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of years. It has to do with the idea of how much you need or don't need to break continuity, how much of the new person needs to contain or doesn't need to contain the idea of that experience being recreated over again in the present. Just depends on the person. But yes, it's possible. Just depends on the reasons for doing it.
It almost sounds to me like it's a shamanic training tool to be able to let go of past experience and to experience newness to a higher degree, and then to shift back and forth between that.
It can be, yes. Because even the new experience that is experienced as if for the first time, once that's experienced, it will become part of the experience that you will use from that point forward. So you're still going to do that. You're still going to use your experiences in the way that you prefer to, even when you create something that feels absolutely new. You're still going to put it to work, so to speak, in the future by relating to it and referring to it in whatever way actually serves you.
When people incarnate into a new life experience, one of the purposes of that is to let go of past experience of something, of existence, I guess.
Well, yes and no, because again, remember that that experience is actually happening in the present. The idea of reincarnation is an illusion. But you can create the experience of reincarnation by making connections from the present that you interpret as memories. You don't have to do that, and you can create what seems to be a clean slate to quote unquote start over. But all of these things happen from the present because everything exists all at once. So you're connecting to other simultaneous coexisting entities. You're not really coming from a past experience. You're not really going to a future experience. Everything is happening now.
I'm just going to get a little more clarity on that. So yes. The idea of having a life as a human being, it comes with the collective agreement that the majority of any other experience, it's highly focused. So the majority of experience that you're going to have is like from the first time, seeing yourself from a new perspective, experiencing all of this for the first time.
Apparently, yes. That's the illusion that is created.
And the purpose of that is?
As you said, to discover yourself from a new point of view. To have that experience of wonderment, of discovery.
Hi, Bashar. Greetings from Croatia, Europe. I wanted to say that I'm very happy in these days of lockdown. And my question is what we can do more for this global ascension process. Thank you very much, and say hello to all your people.
Use the isolation in a monastic way, we have said, so that you can work on yourself and clear yourself out of belief systems that no longer work for you. So you can streamline yourself to go through the passage of the eye of the needle and come out the other side in a more accelerated way as more of your true self. That's one thing, because then you become more of a living example to others of what they can choose to by seeing in you the joy you experience by being more of yourself. At the same time, many of you are learning to use many of your technological devices, such as being used right now for communication over your internet. And you can use your imagination. You can expand your imagination. This kind of forces you, in a sense, to work your imagination in a more expanded way, to come up with ways to connect, come up with ways to do things that can help others in a variety of ways. So by sequestering yourself, you actually have to expand other parts of your imagination to reach out and make the connections you cannot necessarily make physically at this time. So use your imagination. Give it free rein. See what happens. Follow the formula. There are many, many things you can be doing, even from a position of physical sequestering, that you may not necessarily have thought of before because you didn't have to. So now that you have created a situation where it seems like you have to, you can give more free rein to investigating yourself, finding out who you really are, and by finding out more of who you really are, being inspired to do things that you may never have thought of before because you weren't the you are now in this circumstance.
Can you comment on the idea of what the collective is doing at this particular time in terms of how the lockdown has affected us, and then how that can then be applied to the lockdown experience for the individual?
Well, we have addressed this already to some degree, and even just moments ago. It's an opportunity to go within. It's an opportunity to have more self-investigation about what you do and don't prefer, what belief systems you prefer to hold on to, which ones you prefer to let go of. It's about snapping the chains of the anchors to the past. It's about streamlining yourself so you can go through the passage in this transitional time more effortlessly, more accelerated, and come out the other side in a more positive way that can create, with a more expanded imagination, more things that are more representative, putting out into the world, so to speak, more things that are more representative of the version of Earth that you prefer. It's a time of inner creativity that can be stored up like the idea of potential energy, so that when it comes time to go back out into the world, it can become kinetic energy in a variety of new ideas and new expressions and new activities, new ways, new actions that you may not have otherwise thought to do, because now you have built up this library, this reservoir in your imagination of, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. By being more of yourself, more of these inspirations come to you. You use what is at hand in a different way than you ever did before, like you're using your internet technology now in ways that most people didn't necessarily think they could. You are refining it, you are perfecting it. It is creating more of a telepathic connection and communication in your communities. And when you come out the other side, you will find that you can function in a much more expanded, more creative way as more of yourself. So it's really up to you to customize these things for yourself by taking advantage of what's going on in the sequestering now, to dig down more deeply within yourself, find out who you really are and who you really are not, and let those attributes come out in a more creative and expressive and imaginative way.
Hello, my name is Rob. I am from Edmonton, Canada. My question for Bashar is, how can one best discern when you get conflicting information from two or more channels that you trust? Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you very much. See ya.
As we said, there will always be interpretations. There will always be ways of saying things that are for different belief systems. It's up to you to decide what to use and what to leave behind. You can decide what works for you. You can decide what doesn't. It doesn't mean necessarily that information coming that doesn't align with you is wrong. It's simply not necessarily correct for you in the way it's being transmitted. It may be being interpreted in a certain way. Terminologies may be different. They may sometimes be saying the same thing in different ways because of the different belief systems on your planet that need to hear them in different ways. But if the way something is being said simply doesn't resonate with you, then simply find what does resonate with you. That's the only thing that matters at that moment. You can trust them both to deliver information that both does and doesn't resonate with you, and you can trust that the whole idea of that is for you to actually develop better discernment about what does and doesn't resonate with you, and take and use what does and leave what doesn't behind. This is a process of training to know what is you and what is not. So sometimes information may even be deliberately delivered that doesn't resonate with you to see if you're willing to know that it doesn't and recognize that it doesn't, so that you don't succumb to what somebody is saying just because they're saying it. So you can trust that it is being done for your benefit, even if it is information that doesn't actually resonate with you. It's still up to you to decide how to use that information or not use that information according to what you believe is true for you, and that's the whole point.
Again, with that particular question, so since you have said that the virus was a natural virus that...
I am not saying that it has not been in some ways manipulated by humanity, but it began as a natural virus. And that is what we are focusing on, so that you can understand why it wound up the way it wound up, even if someone has been manipulating it. It started to be manipulated because of its tendency to cross barriers through the destruction of the natural environments on your planet. We are giving you an overview and a simplified version of this idea and not going into the details that would, in your society, make a lot of people begin to focus a little bit too much on the conspiracy theory aspect of these things. So let us just leave it as the idea that, yes, to some degree, the viral components have been manipulated a bit, but it all begins with the natural idea that when you destroy ecosystems on your planet, these viruses will make themselves available to be utilized in negative ways from a variety of fear-based belief systems. And that's all we're going to say about that at this time.
Okay. Yeah, because basically what you're saying is you miss the point if you focus on the conspiracy theory of this is another government trying to do something to you or whatever. That
even if it's accidental, you're still missing the point, because it has to begin with taking responsibility for why the world is out of balance and why these things occur. So even if one of the end results is that somebody decides from their own fear-based beliefs to take a natural virus and manipulate it and engineer it into something else, it still begins with the major point that this only happened because of the destruction and the imbalance that exists on your planet through fear-based beliefs. And that's the point to focus on. Not what became of it in its variety of expressions and forms, but why it became that way in its variety of expressions and forms. That's the point that we choose to focus on, and therefore we will not go too deeply into the idea of the so-called side effects that may be the result of people's fear-based beliefs and actions and manipulations, but the focal point of why you're out of balance to begin with.